You know, something really strange is happening in the American economy right now. On one hand, you've got more people becoming millionaires than ever before. But on the other hand, millions of families are getting absolutely crushed by debt, feeling like they can't get ahead no matter how hard they work. So how can both of these things be true at the same time? Let's break it down.
It really boils down to this simple idea. We're all living in the same country under the same economic system, but for millions of people, it's like we're living in two completely different worlds.
So on one side of the street, you have people who feel like they're just treading water. Their paycheck comes in and poof, it's gone before they can even think about saving. But right across from them, there's another group that's quietly building serious wealth, faster than any generation before them. So what's the secret? What's the one thing that determines which side of this divide you end up on?
Well, to answer that, we first have to understand the pressures that the typical American is up against. I call it the great financial squeeze. It's this perfect storm of your income, your spending, your debt, and inflation all hitting you at once, making it feel almost impossible to get ahead. It all starts with the big number you always hear about, income. Right now, the median household income in the U.S. is about $84,000. And all median means is that half of households earn more than that and half earn less. But that single number, it hides the real story.
What's really interesting is how our income changes over our lifetime. You see it climbs and climbs, and then it peaks right here between the ages of 45 and 54 at about $92,000. But just think about that for a second. Even at the absolute height of their careers, the typical American family still isn't cracking that six-figure mark. And this is where that squeeze becomes painfully clear. That peak income of 92 grand is going up against peak spending of about 80 grand. That leaves a razor-thin margin. And remember, that $80,000 is just to live. We're talking mortgage, food, gas, the basics. Not a single dollar of that is going towards saving for the future.
So what happens when there's no room for error? When the car breaks down or a medical bill shows up? Well, you know what happens. People turn to debt. For households that carry a credit card balance from one month to the next, the average amount they owe is about $11,000. And this is where the squeeze turns into a trap.
The math on this is absolutely terrifying. Let's say you have that $11,000 balance at a pretty standard 23% interest rate. If you only make the minimum payments, it will take you 22 years to be free. And get this, along the way, you'll have paid almost $18,500 in interest alone. You end up paying back nearly 3 times what you borrowed. This is literally how wealth gets destroyed.
And on top of all of that, you have this silent killer, inflation. Yeah, the yearly rate might not sound so bad right now, but that's missing the point. The real story is the cumulative effect. Since early 2020, prices are now just on a permanently higher level, about 25% higher to be exact.
Let's make that super real for you. If your entire life cost $60,000 a year just a few years ago, today, to maintain that exact same lifestyle, it costs you over $72,000. So ask yourself, has your income gone up by that much? Because if it hasn't, you've effectively gotten a pay cut, even if your paycheck says the same number. Okay, so that's the squeeze. Now let's talk about the single biggest thing that separates those two financial Americas. It's more important than your job, more important than your degree. It all comes down to housing. I mean, just look at these numbers. They are absolutely staggering. The typical homeowner has a net worth of around $400,000. The typical renter, $10,000. That is a 40 times difference in wealth. For generations, homeownership has been the most powerful wealth-building tool for the American middle class, period. But here's the brutal reality. For most people, that tool is now locked away. Today, a shocking 75% of all households in the U.S. cannot afford to buy a median-price new home. They are literally locked out of the primary engine of wealth creation in this country. So, if housing is the first great divide, the second one is retirement. And if you thought those housing numbers were concerning, the retirement statistics are downright alarming. A lot of Americans are speeding towards a retirement cliff they don't even see coming. Let's just start with this one fact and let it sink in for a second. 1 out of every 4 working adults in America has absolutely nothing saved for retirement. 0. Zilch. Nada. And for millions more, the number isn't much bigger. This chart shows you just how big the problem is. Financial experts say you'll probably need a nest egg of over $1.2 million to retire comfortably.
But if you look at people who are right on the doorstep of retirement, those between 55 and 64, the median amount they actually have saved is only $185,000. That's $1 million shortfall. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, what about Social Security? Here's the hard truth about that. Social Security was never designed to be your entire retirement plan. On average, it only replaces about 40% of your working income. But most people need 70 to 80% to live comfortably. You see the problem? That leaves a huge gap that you have to fill with your own savings. Okay, I get it. Those numbers can feel pretty overwhelming. But we're not here to just stare at the problem. We're here to talk about the solution. So let's flip the script and talk about the actionable 6-step playbook you can use to build a much better financial future. All right, here it is, the playbook. Number 1, aim higher than typical. Use these average numbers as your starting line, not your goal. Number 2, make high interest debt your mortal enemy. It's a 5-alarm fire for your finances. Put it out with everything you've got. 3, lock in your biggest costs. A fixed-rate mortgage is a beautiful thing because it protects your biggest bill from inflation for 30 years. 4, prioritize owning assets. You want to own things that make money for you while you sleep, especially your own home. 5, plan for a long life. Retirement could easily be a 30-year journey. Don't plan for a short trip. And number 6, the most important one, build the habits. This all comes down to consistent positive behaviors day in and day out. And that really is the heart of it all. The difference between the family that's struggling and the family that's thriving usually isn't some giant gap in their paychecks. It's decades of different behaviors. It's the small, consistent choices, paying yourself first, avoiding dumb debt, investing every single month, that compound over time into life-changing wealth.
So let's end with this one powerful idea. When the typical American retires, their median net worth is about $410,000, but the average is $1.8 million. Why is the average so much higher? It's pulled up by all the people who followed the playbook. That huge gap isn't because of lottery winners. It's the mathematical result of decades of choices. The statistics don't define your destiny. Your habits do. So the only question left is, which path will you choose?